Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you this morning.
Yeah, good to see you. I'm not sure if we have met this year.
No. I'm not sure.
So happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Belated one.
Belated. I hope it started well for you.
Well, quite well. Yeah, we can't complain. Quite well.
How's Parliament?
So Parliament is okay. It's okay. Basically, there's a lack of direction in the country.
Okay.
And that includes Parliament. We really don't know whether we are going. It's like you are standing at a junction. You don't know whether you are going forward, you're going left, or you're going right. And the driver is the government.
So and the driver is giving you difficulty.
We are all in the vehicle. That's what is happening at the moment. Yeah.
Wow. But you have a job in Parliament, and it sounds like that's becoming a difficult job for you to do. Your job is to ensure that you make sure, to the extent possible, government is doing the things that promote the welfare of the people.
Absolutely.
Hold government accountable.
Yeah.
How difficult has it been? Because you've been in Parliament over the period of this government.
Yeah.
How difficult or easy has it been for you?
Well, good morning to your listeners and those who have the opportunity to watch us. Well, happy belated International Women's Day for all our women. You're right. Our job, obviously, is to provide an oversight responsibility, in terms of the executive. And to be able to provide an effective oversight responsibility, you must also be getting credible information.
Okay.
That is, the information that you are getting from the executive must be one that is credible.
Okay.
And that you can do all your checks. When that is not forthcoming, when information is being basically distorted,
okay,
when the person you are trying to doesn't see anything that they are doing wrong, it becomes very difficult to even supervise, if you like, that kind of person, and that I mean the executive. So our work is basically cut out, for us, and it is very difficult with the kind of things that this government is doing. Doesn't want to take responsibility for anything. And it's like they have shut their ears and eyes over whatever is going on. And they do things with impunity, thinking that they are not accountable to anyone. Even when auditors' reports are suggesting otherwise, this government really doesn't give a damn. I mean, excuse my language. The president, obviously, from his performance yesterday, it doesn't seem like a man who is troubled. He speaks the right words, and that's something completely different.
Should he be troubled?
Extremely. This is the man who has led us to where we are. Ghana, is the English will tell you, is near bonkers. I mean, basically, this country is technically insolvent. We're a country that we cannot pay our debt. We have unilaterally suspended our external debt. It is not by any negotiation. We have asked for an emergency suspension of our debt because we can't pay the debt. We have done a domestic debt exchange program that has been a mess. The president stands in Parliament and calls it a success. I don't blame the president. He's not a finance or a banker or something, but he's got people who do the job and advise him. And the people are not advising him well. They are not telling him the truth. He comes and says that the debt exchange program was extremely successful. Does it look like a success to you? The flip-flopping that went on, whether pension funds are involved or excluded, whether individual bonds are in or they are out, harassing pensioners and all manner of people except themselves. The government is not really to tighten their belts. They have loosened their belt and telling poor pensioners, people who have served this country over the years and have gathered something little to live on in their retirement, to tighten their belt, and they keep losing theirs. And they keep telling them, look, Yesterday, I was listening to the president. Of course, it is his constitutional mandate under Article 67 to come and report to the House on the state, of the nation. But when the president was talking, you might be thinking he's coming from another planet where there's another Ghana there, and that Ghana is a rosy one. No, not the one we live in. He definitely doesn't live on the same planet with us. So he appears from somewhere and tell us his version of the Ghana that he lives in. And everybody should believe him. And, excuse my language, lies. Telling us things that either haven't happened, or, there's something the psychologists call a self-fulfilling prophecy. That you can tell lies so much for so long that you yourself begin to believe your lies to be true. This is where we are with this government. That whether it's the vice president, whether it's the finance minister, whether it's the president, they all tell lies. And they say so many things over and over and over that they themselves begin to believe is true. That is consistently lying. When you consistently lie, you begin to believe it. You chant your own figures and all sorts of things. And at one stage, it felt like the president's presidency stopped in 2019, 2020.
That's how it felt like to you.
Yeah, because he was talking about achievement, things they had done before COVID, the success they have chalked, the growth, the deficit reduction and all that they have done up until the COVID.
Okay.
That's where he stops. Everything else that happened after that is blamed on COVID and Russia-Ukraine war. And recently, SOEs, remember he gathered SOEs telling them that they are responsible, they should take their share of the blame and all that. If really you have performed that well, why will state-owned enterprises take blame for what? So the consistently lying and the inconsistency in the argument of the president and his appointees is mind-boggling, and it is extremely dangerous. This debt restructuring is going to present, and we'll have an opportunity in Parliament because we have a motion to really debate this well and for people to understand, because of course it's complex and they have made it more complicated than what it is, and they are calling it a success. We have, what the finance or those who operate in the financial derivative market will tell you. We have created basically a toxic parallel derivative bonds. Toxic parallel derivative bond. They are derivatives because they have created a new bond. Because derivative, it means that you have an underlying security. They have created a new bond into this new bond from an old bond. And the old bond and the new bond are both existent. What they don't understand is that whatever impact that old bond, which is not in the program, will affect the new bond that is in the program. That is what they've not been able to comprehend. Okay. So you have a bond A that was sitting outside, okay, and then you take half of it and take it into a debt exchange program to create a new bond. That new bond you have created, which is A1, is basically dependent on A. Therefore, the A is the underlying security of the new bond you have created. Therefore, whatever happens to the new bond you have created will also happen to the old bond. So there's going to be a distortion in the bond market, invariably in the whole economy. It is going to create problems for bondholders in the future because there's going to be a distortion. There are two bonds with different names operating under the same economy. They call one under a debt exchange program. They call one outside. And they will tell you, we will honor the maturity of the old one, including, it shows you clearly that this government doesn't understand. It's one thing being irresponsibly creating the debt we have created. Mm-hmm. There's another thing being reckless and wasteful expenditure based on your incompetency of managing the economy. And the third one is the incompetency of not being able to put even a debt exchange program together. This is how incompetent and hopeless that this government is. They are basically don't have a clue. So when the president calls this debt exchange a success, I thought these guys must be.
But he was also looking
They
at.
are probably drinking different water than we are.
He talked about quantum, that if I have 80 billion and I've gotten 80% subscription, I've done quite well.
But even that, it shows you clearly they don't understand what you're doing. You have 137 billion initially,
okay,
which did not have individual bondholders in it. When this thing was announced in the first place, they said no individual bondholders included, but pension fund. And then, of course, the noise came from the pension fund. And then they said, okay, now pension funds are also exempted. But now, as that is exempted, we are going to bring in the bondholders. The question you ask yourself is, for what reason did you decide to exclude bondholders, individual bondholders, and did not initially? And for what reason are you now bringing the bondholders? What has changed? Is it because the pension funds are now out and you want the money? And you realize that the pension funds is 27.5 billion. So even if you decide to take the pension funds of 27.5 billion out of it, that's 109.5 billion, almost 110.
okay.
Now, 110 billion over 137 is 80%. You didn't need pension funds and you did not need individual bondholders.
Okay.
You get your 80% without going down this basically draining, messing up people, getting old people, including the former Chief Justice, picketing at the Ministry of Finance at their old age unnecessarily. If it's 80% you wanted, take pension out. Individual bondholders are already out. Pension is 27.5.
Okay.
110 over 137 is 80%. Okay. So you didn't need to go down all this road to create the mess you have created. What they have created is a monster debt restructuring. That has an implication for future bond market in this country. That has an implication on future maturities of these bonds that are being traded alongside, and which are now para. We have para bonds of the same bond. One is the underlying security of the other. Because if you and I hold bond and you don't subscribe to the bond, we hold the same bond. Yeah. I go under the debt exchange program, whether voluntarily or whatever, and I go. But it's the same bond I was holding with you. Then my bond is now reconstructed and given a new name under a program. But the underlying security, where I came from, is where you are.
Okay.
So your bond is basically, in a way, the market will look at it, it's reliant on the performance of the bond. Because you are not supposed to be any worse off than me who is in the program. And I'm not supposed to be any worse off than you.
Who is outside the program.
So the construction of that and the mechanism will create some kind of interdependence on the two bonds. That is what they call the parallel derivative bond. The bond you have created are derivative. One depends on the other, and they are parallel. So you are creating a serious problem in the market. These guys don't have a clue. They don't understand it. And then the president comes and said, a successful bond exchange. Really? Going through that mess. I mean, what did they do? You look at it even. If you have exempted bondholders, okay, and you say you have exempt individual bondholders, you have exempted pension funds, and you say they can come in voluntarily if they want. Okay? The 137 billion. If you had done that exchange from the beginning by exempting pension funds and that, you would have done that based on 110. But they waited and waited with all this back and forth flip-flopping, that in between that time, about 7 billion of the bond was due for maturity all across. Yeah. So you realize that in the end, the finance minister's statement, he reported that the bond is now 130 billion. The reason is that 7 billion had matured during the period that they were wasting time harassing pensioners. So now everything is based on 130 billion, which of course ended up in 97 or whatever, when you take everything out. And then in that 97 or whatever, they were able to get 80 something, which when you calculate it, is about 85. But these are just ratios. And the ratios will tell you that if you had done it in the first place, I mean, I don't know, you know, well, we know Ken Ofori Atta went to Yale, or, you know, and you really don't know who this guy is, whether he's working as an investment banker, and he doesn't understand this, or he doesn't want to understand it. I just don't get it.
Because this is his market.
It is, yes.
Apparently, from listening to him,
it is his market.
It's supposed to be his market.
It was my market.
Yes.
And I don't know. So why
and
is
you're
it
saying that he's demonstrating a lack of understanding of something he's done for decades?
Absolutely. I mean, was he the one doing it? Was it being done for him? I mean, these are the questions you need to begin to ask. That if this guy has done this, you know, I mean, probably he hasn't done any debt exchange anywhere.
Okay.
I mean, which country has he done a debt exchange for? Or, you know, he was in a private, you know, market. If there's any restructuring of debt, he would have done it for maybe a private entity. I don't know if he had been involved in, definitely not here in Ghana, in any debt. I mean, that kind of debt restriction we are doing, you know, this is the DDEP. It's the first time we're doing it.
Okay.
But it's been done elsewhere. So even if you don't understand it, just look at the models elsewhere. It is as straightforward. This could have been done in day one. When you would come and say, pensions are social intervention. You don't want your pensioners to suffer.
Okay.
Therefore, you ring fence something to cushion them, and you are not going to include them in the exchange. It will be perfectly understood. Then you say individual bondholders. How much are they? 15.5 billion. If you add those who trade direct, in addition to those who are in some kind of a, you know, a pot. 15.5 billion. What difference would that make? Initially, you did not include them. So it means that there's some thinking that went into that to include pension and not include individual bondholders. Now, after telling them, or after telling you that you will not be included, they come back to you and say, now you are included. Would you just let it go lightly? You will resist. And then, so the pension funds are now feeding on the individual bondholders. And then, or individual bondholders are what is it called? Feeding on the pension. That if pension could get themselves out, you can't get somebody who's already in out and tell us that you want us in. The flip-flopping, the lack of understanding, the impact of this whole thing tells me clearly that this government is a hopeless government. I do the hopeless because, you know, hopeless can sound as an insult. But then if you break it with a hyphen, it becomes hope and less, which means there's no hope.
At this point in time, that's a description that should worry everybody.
Absolutely.
Because you're talking about us managing a debt crisis, an economy that is being virtually junked by most of the rating agencies.
We know what you've seen a result from the rating agencies, and it still is going to be worse. Because now, once we go off the scale of rating, which is where we are, junk, so a time will come when you pass the C's and all that, you can't be on the scale of rating. So your bond should be suspended in the market. It cannot be traded because it cannot be rated. That's where we are coming to. You know, what they are looking at now, I mean, when I hear they say China is the elephant in the room, that tells me that these guys are completely clueless. China, I'm telling you here in your studio, is never the elephant in the room.
China is not.
No. How can you owe someone, you owe about 20-something billion, and then somebody that you owe 1.7 billion becomes the elephant in the room? Then you probably don't know what an elephant is. I mean,
so who is our elephant?
Consider the fact that elephant is your symbol. You can't even recognize one. That's how incompetent you have become. I mean, look, you owe an Eurobond market, a capital market, of about 13 or so billion. And then you call China the elephant in the room?
$13 billion.
Absolutely. The Eurobond.
China is 1.7.
Yeah. So who's the elephant?
It's the Eurobond market.
Yeah. So go to the Eurobond market and negotiate, because they don't even know how they are going to negotiate in the Eurobond market. So they're going to China, obviously, going to ask China for debt forgiveness. They're going to the G20 Common Framework, that is a Paris Club, and go ask for debt forgiveness. You know, obviously this is in their traits, you know, from Kufuor era, they know HIPIC. So they're doing something similar to that. Thinking that when they do all those things, the capital market will probably begin to see some sense in trying to negotiate with them. I mean, how much do we owe in that where you are trying to do? It will be so fine, you can understand that. But if you're really serious about doing your debt restructuring, but let me tell you what they are. Obviously, Ken Ofori Atta must know this. When you buy bonds in the international capital market,
okay,
the bonds are insured. There's an insurance on those bonds.
Those who buy
the
Eurobonds
are insured. And you will pay the insurance. You, the issuer.
Okay.
You pay the insurance.
So we have been paying insurance,
of course,
on those bonds.
Yeah, it's just like you have gone for a loan. And you know, when these loans come to Parliament, it has an insurance element. Quite recently, we dealt with one where the insurance we said were too high. So we wouldn't, So that insurance that you have given to an insurance company to insure those bonds, if the bonds default or there's a force majeure or whatever, those insurance companies will pay the Eurobond holders.
Okay.
So, I'll tell you what, one trick that the government probably wants to do is they want to wait because you want to unilaterally suspend the bond. So the bondholder is thinking, what are my options now? I mean, no negotiation has taken place. They tell you we are negotiating with the external creditors. And you ask yourself, which external creditor are you talking to? Then they tell you the elephant in the room, China. I mean, are these guys? This is the economic management team. This is we have the men, the Jambafwas and the rest. You know, and then you leave that. So now what is likely to happen? And the capital markets have now come up, they signal that we might have to trigger the insurance. They intend to trigger the insurance. When they trigger the insurance, what will happen is that the insurance companies will then pay them, which means that they've cut their losses.
Okay.
When they do that, it means that your bond is not tradable because the people who hold the bond are not trading them. They are exchanging them for insurance. It's like you have a car that has been involved in an accident. And the car gets involved in an accident many times. And each time it gets involved in an accident, the insurance company will pay. Okay? So that car itself is an accident-prone car, which you are not able to sell. Now, each time insurance company pays your insured whatever, like you had an accident with another car.
Pays your claims.
Your premium, that's what, goes up.
Yeah.
So a time will come, Ghana will not be able to go to the capital market, not because nobody wants to lend you money, but no insurance company actually wants to insure you.
Okay.
Because you become what the insurance companies call moral hazard. You take insurance because you know you are going to get into an accident for somebody to pay. So it gets into a time if you are not able to pay the premium. So when that happens, Ghana moves from being a junk bond to a completely suspended bond. So when does that happen? Maybe they means the debts are free for Ghana because insurance company has paid. But Ghana will probably never be able to return to the capital market for a very, very long time. And that will be disastrous for this country. Because in as much as you don't want to borrow too much, you need to have that option to be able to have a funding mix when you are funding your budget. You should be able to, especially when you are no longer a low-income country and that you don't have access to concessionary funding and all that. You need a mixture of a capital, capital market funding. You need bilateral money. You need multilateral money. And if you take it in the right balance, you'll be able to fund your deficit. But you are basically shooting yourself in the foot. Because, I mean, do you think that people, they are asleep? You can just get up and say, we have suspended, what is it called? And then the president said in his statement, that's a joke, interim emergency measure. With who? You just went down there, you say you can't pay your debt. Of course, you can do that. You can't pay your debt, but it has implication. The moment you say you can't pay your debt, that becomes a huge risk. And the risk means that you will have to be, obviously, be discounted. And that is what triggered the rates. Now, the people who are holding the Eurobond, 13 or so billion, then begins to think of their options. And they say, remember, we have an insurance. like a car. This guy had an accident with me, but there's an insurance that I can claim from. So why don't we go and claim from the insurance, do away with Ghana and cut our losses? Okay. Then Ghana is probably thinking, okay, if they go and make a claim, then we wouldn't have to pay the debt. But
that's very risky.
Extremely risky. That will shut you out of not only the capital bond market, but nobody will want to lend you money because your insurance everywhere, even bilateral loans, your insurance will go up. So the insurance they brought us here, that we were complaining quite recently, will be ballooned in such a way that anybody who will give us money, the cost of the borrowing, which will include the insurance cost, will make it astronomical and impossible for us to be able to pay any debt.
What would have convinced you that they are handling this properly? Because you say from what you're reading, you are convinced that they just sat somewhere and decided we've suspended it without. What would have convinced you that they are getting it right?
Well, they are not getting it right, obviously, because first and foremost, I was telling you that in the domestic debt, okay, you can do them separately as they in the domestic debt restructuring, which led to this, DDEP, they could have simply, you can see from there that the decision itself that was taken from the very onset had created problems in the market. You can't say someone is exempted yesterday and you say today they are in. You cannot say someone is in and tomorrow, because of some agitation, you say they are exempted. That itself is a failure. It makes the whole process a flaw. Okay. So now, whatever you end up with, which will be things you have patched, errors and all those things you have patched to get something, and you call it the best. But it isn't. Because you have created, look, when you're doing this exchange, nobody should be left in or left out. Okay. So you cannot have the same bond, which is packaged differently in the debt exchange, and the same bond is also sitting outside. But don't forget that the history of those bonds are the same. That is why they become a derivative. Okay. One is derived from the other. And in any derivative, if you go to the derivative market, things like options, swaps are all derivatives. They depend on an underlying security. Okay. So whatever happens to your option will depend on what happens to the security that the option itself is a put or option on, a put or a call on. The same thing if you do a future transaction or a forward transaction, which is also a derivative. That future transaction you have done depends on some basic security. It's like you have gold and you have a spot price for gold. That spot price for gold is the underlying security. If you do gold futures, which depend on the same gold, that becomes a derivative on that one. So your bonds can never be separate. Okay. Once they come from the same source and they were issued at the same time, it doesn't how window dressing you give it or cosmetically how you dress it. They are basically related.
The same bond. Okay.
And the market will perceive them that way. So people will look at the performance of the bond in your DEP and look at what is happening on those outside. And people will be looking at those outside and see the performance of the ones that is inside. Because don't forget, now they have a different tenor, they have a different maturity date, but those bonds were all created by the same mother. It's like twins. You have given one for adoption and you have decided to raise the other. There's always going to be comparison. Whether the twin adopted is doing better than the twin that you kept. And why did you keep the other twin? Because you couldn't afford to look at both of them, which means that you are not financially secured to be able to look after the twins. Therefore, it is likely that maybe the twin adopted, which will probably go to parents who don't have a kid and they want one and they have the money. That kid will be looked after better than the one that you'll be looking after because you don't have money.
So your way is to have, you said you were going to ring fence some money.
Yeah.
And settle the pension fund.
Yes. You take the pension fund. If you want if you want the pension fund in, you have to guarantee the pension fund that they are not going to lose any money. Okay. If you give that guarantee, the pension fund people do not have to kick, whatever you are going to get at the end of that pension, we will make sure that you get that money in addition to time value of money. Okay. Therefore, if you have your bond invested in 10 years and it's going to give you a certain amount, and you say I should wait for 15 years, you will have to compensate me for the time value of the extra 5 years that I'm going to wait.
Okay.
And if you guarantee me that, you know, those monies they said they were going to use, if they had used that money to guarantee the pension fund, that you are not going to lose any money. You don't need your pension anyway now, except those who are due for pension. You are going to get yours in maybe 10 years. Okay. And I can guarantee you that 10 years, we have drawn an agreement that you are not going to lose a penny, but you'll be compensated for inflation and the time value of money. Otherwise, that money that I can get tomorrow will be much eroded, maybe if I get it in 5 years' time because of inflation and of course, time value for money. If you don't do that, then you cannot include pension funds in the debt exchange program. If you leave them out, then fine. But the ones who come in need the same guarantee because they cannot be worse off than those who are staying outside.
Okay.
So if we are holding the same thing, and I'm doing bad staying outside, and you are doing better staying, or vice versa, you have created a monster. You have created a system that is going to have a friction against each other. It will distort your bond market. Is somebody listening? I mean, look, you don't go to Yale and do such a disaster. You know, I mean, that's why those schools have names. And this is the situation we put ourselves in. Then you come to think of it. Really, how much people volunteered? This can be calculated. How many people volunteered to come into this debt exchange program? And I can tell you, not a lot. Because you can work the numbers out. Because the numbers that stayed in, if they say pensions are exempted, now I don't know what the actual status is. Pensions are exempted. Individual bondholders did not come in. They can do that voluntarily. And 137 billion, you have matured 7 billion already before the program starts. And other things that brings you to 130, and then other things come in and bring you to 97 or whatever you are. And that 97, only 85 billion of it. Doesn't that tell you that maybe the pension funds are not, nobody volunteered from the pension fund at all?
No.
Because if they are exempted and you get 85 of a 97, doesn't it tell you that individual bondholders probably nobody sign up, and if they did sign up, and if you do the calculation, you will actually realize that out of the pensions are 27.5 billion, the the individual bondholders are 15.5. When you put the two together, that's 43 billion. Now, if you calculate the difference between if they had done it originally at the 130 and got that 80% I told you about, and you look at how they've done it now and get 85%, it means that the difference between what they could have done originally and how they've done now is 5%.
Yeah.
If you calculate back in nominal terms of that 5%, how much they have gained, you will realize that only 2.14 billion took part voluntarily out of a 43 billion. That is a monumental failure. So did we waste all this time to get, we can calculate the percentage of 2.1 billion over 43 billion, and that would give you about 0.5%, about 5%. So it means that you have wasted, frustrated people. Probably people have died. All to do what? To get 5% of people who volunteered. Clearly, and you come to Parliament, the president, and you say this is a successful debt exchange, then I'm sorry, you don't know what you're talking about. But I wouldn't blame the president. The president's principal financial and economic advisors are the finance ministers and those, within the economic sphere in terms of economic management team, are not giving the president a good advice, or they themselves don't understand. But for me, clearly, having come from such industry, I can tell you that I can go into their minds. Whatever they do, I can anticipate what they are doing. The same as the external debt holders, the capital market people. They have done this. They are seasoned people. They know these things. So if you have suspended us, okay, great. We are waiting. They are waiting until such time that they know that if we wait any further, we'll lose money. Therefore, let's go for the insurance and take the claims. And then once we get paid, we wash our hands off Ghana. Then the Ghana bond lifts the ratings. They become beyond junk.
So at this point, what should they be doing in terms of the Eurobond market, which you say is actually the elephant in the room?
So what do you do with the elephant in the room? You go to the elephant in the room. If you really want to have a serious discussion, leave China. You know, I know people look at China, and I'll tell you why I suspect, because I'm reading, through the minds of these guys and thinking, why are they making decisions? Don't think they are making them stupid decisions. They have a motive for doing it. At the moment, the only people who are likely to give Ghana money is China. Only people.
Oh.
Think about it. The only people.
China.
Yes. China over the last years or so has given 60 billion to Africa. Allocated. Countries have taken. I mean, we owe China less than a lot of African countries. Zambia has a huge, debt with China. So if you are chasing 1.7 billion to restructure or to get a debt relief, what are you really trying to do? They are trying to plead with China not only to forgive them debt, but to give them money, because they can't get money. Yes, this is what this government knows: spending, borrowing to spend. That's what investors.
At this point in time, should they even be thinking about that?
Let me tell you what. As an investment banker, I can tell you there is some kind of a rule of thumb that you use other people's money to make money. So you get money from shareholders, from people who put money in your bank, and then you use it to make money, not your money. And the money that you make, you then get commissions and fees from it. That's how investment bankers live. They live on fees and commission of other people's money. It's only very few occasions that some have, proprietary investment, which is money coming from their own. So the finance minister's thinking is always been using other people's money. The mistake he had made this time is that the other people's money this time is a taxpayers' money, not shareholders. So he is thinking, where can I get money from? I need money. I need money to pay salary. I need money to do this. Capital markets will not give me the money. Even if I go and negotiate with them, they won't give me money. Bilateral will not give me money unless maybe IMF are ready to play ball with us. Who will not wait for IMF to give me money? That's China. China is the only place, even the Paris Club will wait for the IMF. So if you expand it to G20, you say China is part of it. But why specifically China? It's because Ghana government wants a relief of its debt and asks China to give it more money, which they're probably going to tell them again they will pay with some natural resource. I mean, at the end of the day, the money we owe China, don't we all remember that the money we owe China, they told us that they will pay with bauxite. So what sort of negotiation are they doing with China? Is it a bauxite project negotiation, or is it negotiation to give them a relief of the money? China is going to ask you, where is the bauxite you promised me? They might have done some feasibility study and realized that the bauxite was there. All the integrated stuff that they told us about has not materialized. The bauxite is still on the ground. So what are you negotiating with China? Now you are telling China, we'll pay you cash, but give me a relief or dash me that 1.7 million. But in doing so, can you please give me another 1 billion? Because my situation. And China being sympathetic, China not looking too much on geopolitics, not looking too much on interfering in country matters, might give you that 1 billion and hook it against something. They will tell you that, look, you have delayed in this bauxite. Now show us where the bauxites are. They have a lot of Chinese doing what is it called, galamsey. Show us where the sites are. We will now come and mine the bauxite ourselves and take it away. Because now everything is being collateralized. Gold for oil, this for that. I mean, these are the daft policies that got us here in the first place. If you go to tell somebody that you are going to pay gold, we are going to use gold to pay for oil, it means that you are doing what is called a future arrangement. It's a derivative type of arrangement where you will agree a price, what they call a strike price. You will agree a price to deliver a certain commodity to that person at a future date. So whatever happens to the price tomorrow, if gold price goes up, if you have arranged with an oil that I'll pay you $70 a barrel, so for $70 a barrel, I'll give you this amount of gold. So I want this many barrels. So you have agreed a price. Now, if you go to if tomorrow the price becomes 80, or if tomorrow the price drops, you cannot drop the gold price that has been pegged to that. So you have to incur the losses. That is what happens in the derivatives market. Okay. If it goes the other way, that the oil price goes up to maybe 90, and you have already agreed a gold amount for 70, it is the same gold amount that you'll be giving for the 100. So you have hedged so that the price will not fluctuate. That is why you can agree to get a decent amount of oil for a period of time. You don't go there every day to negotiate a price. You lock in a price and say, supply me this oil for 1 year at this price of gold. So if the price goes in your favor, you get advantage. You pay less gold. Okay. If it goes the other way around, you will have to, gain from the other side. So this agreement that they say is so beautiful. Everything is beautiful. This president has built the best roads since independence. This government has built the fiber optics since independence. One thing they have done, which they can add to their credit or portfolio, is that they have created most of the daft policies. Daft. One of them being this exchange thing that they have done. It's a monster. Yes. So they have created a monster, and probably now Akufo-Addo can take that as a credit that he's a president who has created the worst, dual bond in this country. He's the worst that has created a barter trade of gold and oil. They can take all that to their credit, but unfortunately, the implication or the impact will be on the future generation. Will be on presidents who are to come in the future, or government who will come in the future.
And that was where I was coming from, because when you talk about the bond market, we've been, in fact, under John Dramani Mahama, there was some money taken from the bond market.
Yeah.
But when you realize you were in trouble, you immediately moved to make some changes.
Yeah.
So that you can still look good in the eyes of the bond market.
On the President Mahama, we took only about 3.5 or 3.5 billion of Eurobond. Not more than that. These guys in 6 years have taken, about even the amount of Eurobonds they are reporting looks quite inconsistent.
Okay.
Because look, in the Eurobond, I mean, of course, when we came into office, the only Eurobond that we had was the Kufuor's Eurobond of 750, which by the time we were leaving office, we had built a sinking fund to pay for it.
Okay.
So they didn't have to do anything in 2017 when the bond was due. They only had to come and just use the money we have put down to pay. The bonds that we have, the 3 or so bonds that we took, one of them I think is due in September or August of last year.
Okay.
The other one is due in August or September of this year. So the one that they have to pay is only 750, because we took 750, 1 billion and all that. The 750 was due in November.
Okay.
So if they had paid, it means that will be the only Euro bond that they have paid since they came into office. The ones they've taken, and about 2 or so 3 billion that we have, is still outstanding. So about 13 to 14 billion Euro bond are still outstanding. And you call China the elephant in the room. Then you don't know how an elephant looks like, considering that as your symbol.
So basically, if they continue on these routes, you have a situation where a government will inherit an economy that cannot go to the bond market.
Absolutely. How can you go to the bond market? I mean, it's like, how can you drive a car on the road if no insurance will insure you? You may hold I don't know the categories in the driving license. You may hold a license, let's say license A is your top one. You may hold a driving license A. You may be the best driver in the country. But any car you touch, nobody is prepared to show you. So you insure you. So you can only drive on our roads illegally by not taking insurance. But you can't do that in the bond market, because nobody will buy your bond if nobody will insure you. They will demand the insurance. Because in the insurance is what they would trigger when there is a risk, perceived risk. So all our bonds we take in the real market are all insured. And now the insurance companies are threatening that if we don't hear from you, if you continue this, your president's statement, if you continue this, your interim emergency suspension, we will trigger the insurance. And the bond and the rating agencies will just crucify you. Because at the end of it, now, if you look at Ghana, really, Ghana is a hopeless situation. Because if you put a scale, an economic scale of 1 to 10, and ask me that where would I put Ghana, I will tell you Ghana will not make it to the scale. We won't be 1, we won't be 2 over 10. We will not make it to the scale. Because you live in a country where your economy and your bonds are junk. Junk means you are in negative status. So if you put 1 to 10, I mean -1 the last time I checked, is smaller than 1 or smaller than even 0. So that's the economy. And on the bond market, what else can you take? Take currency. Ghana's currency is the worst, is in and out of the worst performing currency in the world. So on a scale of 1 to 10, you won't feature. You are the worst. I mean, take interest rates. Our inflation is so high that real interest rate, not nominal, real interest rates are negative. Which means that if you invest your money today in Ghana, and they even promise you 30% interest rate, you lose. Your real interest rate, that's your nominal, your real interest rate has to factor in inflation, which is around 50%. So you lose. So they will give you a return, all right, but your purchasing power with that money will not reach anywhere because inflation will have eroded all that. So if you have an economy where your real interest rate is negative, where on the scale would you be? 1, 0, negative. Then you are going to what they call, mathematicians call integers. Negative integers and positive integers.
Having said that, because you're referring to the president's statements, question that everybody has asked, how did we get here? You said it seems as if his presidency ended in 2019.
Yes, to him.
Because if you listen to him, he said we're doing fantastically well until COVID set in.
Yeah, and that has nothing to do with him.
Yeah, so he has done nothing wrong.
Yeah, so from 2020 to date, everything that has happened is COVID.
Is it Russia, an excuse you accept?
It's an extreme excuse. Because the COVID happened in every part of the world. How come some people are faring better than us? Look, I was in a certain African country, I wouldn't mention the name, where, Uganda, let me mention it, where the debt to GDP ratio is around 50-something. And they said they have overborrowed. So any borrowing decision has to go to the very top because a decision is making whether the country should take more loans. I was there laughing. 56 or whatever percent. You said
and they said they have overborrowed.
Yes, they have overborrowed.
Their president said it was 103% as last year.
Absolutely. So basically what that tells us, when your debt to GDP, we talk about these numbers, but then we don't really sit down to think about it. 103 of GDP. GDP is basically your productivity. Yeah. So you are saying that your debt is actually more than you are getting in as a country. You are basically insolvent. If the salary you are collecting here is less than the debt you owe, then you are insolvent. You cannot beat all your expenses. Why would you then want to add over 80 billion to your expenditure when you should be rationalizing? And then you tell us we have cut 50% of this, what is it called? Government appointees are supposed to pay, what is it called? Fewer coupons have been divided into whatever.
Yeah.
Cut ministers, you are adding more. When you look at the president's state of the there's a number of all the ministers there. And you ask yourself, I mean, do these guys really know what they are doing? That's what I was telling you, that they are asking everyone, including pensioners, to tighten their belts.
But they are not.
But they are losing theirs. Because they still have a room for their stomachs to grow. But people should, somebody who had worked in some government company for about 30, 40 years, hard labor, who had nothing to do with decisions being made in this country by this bunch of people. And then he goes home to retire, and the little money that he's going to get from his pension, you are telling him that we have incurred some debt, he should pay. But you are still flying your first class business class travels. You are still doing all the kind of things that you do. You go and get COVID money and you come and share it to your people and said no money was used recklessly. When we hear people on tapes talking about what, look, if you look at the president's statement, you think who got this money? You know, I was looking at it and I was just thinking, I don't know of any business. And even if anybody knows any, you can't count 5. This is quite worrying. And we just take it and sit down. I will just refer to that page for you. Yeah, it says we provided 518 million Ghana cedis of grants and loans to micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises through the NBSSI, which is now Ghana Enterprise Agency, in which 302,515, so over 300,000 enterprises benefited. Who are these enterprises? 500. This is the money the woman was talking about. Chop. This is what was shared to the party. Cronies, you cannot mention any decent company here that actually benefited from this. A lot of companies applied. We in Parliament were asked to get our constituencies to apply. Most of them did not get anything. So who are these 300 enterprises? Micro, small, medium scale enterprises. Who got this 515 million?
And these questions, for example, this question is the question that you could put to them.
Well, I think this question has come up in the committee, because I serve on the trade committee.
Okay.
And then we asked this question. They provided some list you cannot comprehend. But I think, as you rightly said, it should become a major issue on this COVID, what is it called? COVID things that we are still talking about. In addition to the debt exchange program, on how we got here. How come a finance minister's company benefited from loans, which we are now doing debt exchange for, to harass pensioners and people who have, people who are on their way to retirement? But somebody had benefited, and that money is ringing in somebody's account, whether in some offshore account or somewhere. But people, and they call it a successful debt exchange. It is only successful for those who have benefited.
We have to take a break, but before we do that, I want you to answer this question for the president. Said we have not borrowed recklessly, nor spent recklessly. Do you disagree?
I told you about the self-fulfilling prophecy, that if you tell lies consistently for so long, you begin to believe that they are true. So in his mind, he believes that he has.
Where's the reckless borrowing?
Well, reckless borrowing is you have borrowed money that there's nothing to show for. Reckless borrowing is you come up with a flagship program called Planting for Food and Jobs. You put over 600 million a year on that project. Yet Ghana is the only country that the more we plant, the less we harvest. When you look at the agriculture,
the more we plant, the less
we harvest. This is the only country. Because when you look at the agriculture sector as a percentage of GDP, it's been going down, which means that agriculture is not contributing enough, considering the intervention that we are doing in agriculture, because we don't measure the economic impact of where we are throwing money. I mean, as we speak, there's no committee in Parliament that has an oversight responsibility on the impact of the economy. And there's no Ministry of Finance, as far as I'm concerned, is not responsible for looking at the impact. The only time they look at an impact of a ministry is when they come for budget hearing, which I believe they have started now. And then they roll things over. The Ministry of Agriculture itself has no capability of looking at the impact of the what is it called? Planting for Food and Job. So Ghana is the only country when you look at it. And then when you look at it in another way, you realize, first of all, when you look at it in terms of GDP, we are not doing very well. If you look at it in terms of inflation, for some time now, since they started this Planting for Food and Jobs, inflation, the biggest component of inflation has been food inflation. So if you are planting that much and spending that money, but you are harvesting less, that is why your inflation, food inflation is going up. Then isn't Ghana the the only country that the more food you plant, the less you harvest. And then the man has successfully exited the ministry, has enough money, and is going to run for president.
So those are evidence of reckless expenditure.
Absolutely. You tell us that you have built 106 factories. Well, why? I mean, if you really have again, we don't look at the economic impact of things. If really 106 countries have been built in these countries, yeah, unemployment should be going down. You should see some activities in the economy. You should even have a wage inflation. Because more people, they will need more people to work. But the inflation we are experiencing at the moment is a food inflation and supply side inflation, fuel inflation, no demand inflation. But yet Bank of Ghana is throwing money in terms of increasing interest rates to try and tackle inflation, creating the real negative rate I was telling you about. Because, you know, that's basically what they're doing, trying to fight inflation from an old school method. That is not what is happening at the moment. So the economy itself they are managing, they don't understand it. They go to the old textbook and they say, when your inflation is going up, what do? Oh yeah, you reduce your exchange, you increase your exchange rate, basically to take money out of the system. Okay. Because when you increase your interest rate, they need to understand what you're doing. If I increase my interest rate, because they know that if inflation is going up, you increase your interest rate. The question is, why should interest rate be increased when inflation is going up? Because inflation is suggesting that the economy is overheating. Overheating either as a result of wages or demand. Therefore, you need to take some heat out of the system. By increasing interest rate, you are actually taking money out of the system to bring the inflation down. But when the inflation is not coming from demand inflation, but it's coming from supply, and you apply this old textbook method, you are actually doing nothing. That is why the more you increase interest rate, the more inflation goes up, because it's having no impact. I mean, I don't know where the governor learned his economics from. I know Ken Ofori Atta went to Yale, and Yale, I know it's a good school. It's got good technical people working there, but I've worked at the ministry before. It is usually the political decisions that matter. There are competent technical people there, but nobody listens to them. I mean, we know them, we talk to them. We know what's going on there. That's my former ministry. So I have my ears on the ground there. And people who have ideas, I've worked with people there with ideas who can solve some of these problems. But the political masters are coming up with their own ideas because they are direct beneficiary of the incompetence that they are creating. There is a motive.
They are benefiting from what we see as incompetence.
Well, yeah, what you see as incompetence, they will call it
exactly what they want to do so that they can benefit.
The incompetence, the opposite word to them will be motive.
Oh, okay.
They have a motive to create this kind of chaotic system. But for you, you see it as incompetence. But they have a motive. They are doing it deliberately because they are direct beneficiaries of this mess that they are creating.
Of our intention to engage the IMF for a funded program. Mr. Speaker, having reached a staff-level agreement on 12 December 2022, after 5 months of intense negotiations and completion of most of the prior actions required under the agreement, we are on course for the IMF staff to present to the IMF Executive Board Ghana's program request for a $3 billion extended credit facility by the end of this month. Mr. Speaker, the 3-year IMF program, anchored on government's post-COVID-19 program for economic growth, aims at restoring macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability whilst protecting the vulnerable. It is a strong reform program which relies on front-loaded fiscal measures to increase domestic resource mobilization and streamline public expenditures to support inclusive growth and enhance social protection. Mr. Speaker, I thank the House for its support throughout this process, including the passage of key revenue laws. However, A few more of these measures, namely the Income Tax Amendment Bill, the Excise Duty and Excise Tax Stamp Amendment Bills, as well as the Growth and Sustainability Levy Bill, are outstanding, which need the urgent attention of the House and passage to complete the prior actions. This will put us in readiness for our presentation to the Fund Board, and more importantly, bolster our domestic revenue mobilization efforts. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that given the extent of the fiscal and debt sustainability issue we are addressing, fiscal adjustment and structural reforms are not sufficient for restoration of debt sustainability. A critical component of the measures we're implementing to address the current economic crisis is the debt operation, involving both domestic debt and external debt. The debt operation is aimed at returning the country to debt sustainable path by 2028 by reducing the debt to GDP ratio.
And we've been discussing that debt operation for some time now. Honorable Kweku Ricketts Hagan is not impressed at all. But there's also one point in what he just said that where I think you have the document itself. They're still promising to get an IMF deal through by the end of March. the executive board approval. There are those who say the US is the one giving them hope. There are those who are saying they're just talking, they won't get it. Where do you stand?
Well, they haven't done enough to demonstrate a program. Okay. They have botched up or messed up the domestic debt restructuring. It has been patched together or put together in an abysmal way, and this whole thing can unravel because it's like you are sleeping and your legs are outside. This bond that is in the exchange program has part of its leg outside in an old bond. So you know the saying, they say when you are sleeping and your legs are outside, you know what the saying goes. You are not really safe. Now, on the external program, you cannot just get an IMF program by just suspending unilaterally your external debt and tell us you are negotiating. But you are not negotiating with the bondholders. You are negotiating with what you call the elephant in the room, which is China. Now, the other European countries, what you owe them, though they are smaller countries, what you owe them when you put it together is more than we owe China. So why are you having an intensive discussion with China and not even having, an intensive discussion with the framework or with the Paris Club?
They seem to have assurances from the Paris Club.
Well, assurances are one thing. You remember something under President Mills, we were assured some money from China, if you remember. We were supposed to use that money for something. Yeah. And that money,
a total of 3 billion.
And that money became problematic. Assurances are one step, getting it is another. Chinese can give you money, but it comes with a number of conditions. In 2015 or 16, that's when China announced in South Africa. I was in that meeting with President Mahama. Announced that they are going to give Africa 60 billion. It sounded very exciting. And then you divide the 60 billion by all the African countries. At least every African country is supposed to get $1 billion. If you look at us as 54 or 55 countries. Okay, and then those who probably will do well will get more. Some got it, some didn't. We went for Sino-Hydro,
yeah.
And then what happened? It became, now it's going to be a barter. We were supposed to pay. The payment should start this year, I believe.
Yeah.
And not a bauxite has left the ground. So even the negotiation they are doing, I don't know whether it's still a negotiation on bauxite or, because if you have the bauxite on the ground, which the Chinese want, and they have given you money, That should be the least area you go and negotiate, because your bauxite is there. And the bauxite is basically being collateralized for this particular facility. So what are you negotiating? Is it that all of a sudden you don't have the bauxite and then you are negotiating on paying with cowries? You know, so that even negotiation, I don't understand it.
Okay.
Your bauxite is there. That is what you told us. You have agreed to pay the Sino-Hydro with. The bauxite has not left the ground, as far as we know, unless it means they are digging it below the water table. So if the bauxite is there, one would have thought that there shouldn't be any worry in negotiating that. If we can't get the bauxite off the ground, we have promised the Chinese, I believe there's some cubic whatever that we have promised them. And they have all the instruments. There are people here doing galamsey, you know, from their prisons and all that. We just have to redirect them to take the bauxite to their home country to pay them. It doesn't require any negotiation, unless, of course, we have not been told the truth about the real beast in that agreement. And that is why you are chasing. Your Eurobond, you have not promised them with bauxite. So why are you not negotiating with them? Because they need their money. At least one, you have a bauxite to give them. The other, you haven't told them anything. If you want to pay them with gold, go and have any discussions with them. But these are seasoned negotiators. They've been doing this over and over. Therefore, if you don't have your marbles together, you will go and they will destroy you. You can cheat us. You know, you can harass pensioners. You can harass individual bondholders. You can tell them if you don't go in, we'll do this or we'll do that. You can do that to us. You can't go and do to the international bondholders. That is why they have suspended. But suspension comes at a price, because now you have defaulted and something is building up for you. Okay. There's going to be a penalty. It's not free. You're going to be downgraded, which will affect not only your bonds, but pretty much every borrowing that you have. Because all institutions are going to relook what you owe them, look at the risk, the perceived risk, and probably adjust the risk profile of the debt. So you have a bigger fish to fry than, you know, you have tilapia to fry. You say you are doing herrings.
So clearly for you, if you're going by the things that they need to do in order to get our executive board approval, we are not close.
We are not. Because
what if we get
all we are doing was, look, I tell you what, unless by some stroke of luck, or the World Bank managing director seems to be quite sympathetic to developing or emerging economies, obviously on this whole COVID thing. And he's been fighting for countries who have suffered worse and are developing countries who probably don't have any chance of surviving. She's the one fighting for them to get some relief. That is where they are getting their hope from. The woman is just thinking of, look, if we don't build this out, these guys are not that they are doing anything credible to be built out, but just on a humanitarian grounds.
But if the government does not show a commitment to reversing this situation in a manner which everybody that goes under an IMF program is supposed to demonstrate, if the government does not, and the IMF goes ahead to give us a deal and enhance us money, what will happen?
Well, the anticipation is that when you get an IMF money, it also comes with credibility. Okay. So you are not only getting the money, but that money opens up other avenue for you. Okay. People then begin to ride at the back of the work that the IMF has done with you. You know, it's like what they call the McDonald's model. Okay. That if McDonald's opened what is it called? What do they call them?
A franchise.
Opens a franchise or open a shop.
Yeah.
Here. Then we call them junk food. Another, the name itself tells you a lot. Another means you are not eating healthy. Anything junk is not good. Like our bonds. So it means that Burger King can also decide to come to Ghana, riding at the back of McDonald's, or vice versa. or Burger King coming to Ghana and McDonald's thinking that if Burger King is here, it must be good for us. So Burger King will not do any homework, much homework. They ride on the homework that McDonald's has done, or vice versa, to come into the country. So these countries who we owe money to will ride at the back of the IMF things that they've done with us. They don't have the capacity or the money to come and spend that time with us. Don't forget that the capital market are various banks who probably don't have the resources to come and sit down and do all these lengthy negotiations and send directors back and forth. So they rely on IMF to do that job. So when the IMF does it, and he said, we are good to go, we are good to give 3 billion to Ghana, then these guys will do the McDonald's model. And right at the back of that, either to restructure the debt or even open up some windows for us to get some money. The same with bilateral, the same with multilateral. So we are hoping that by so doing, we will use IMF as a leverage to bring other people in to help the situation. So you go for 3 billion, you could end up with 10 or 15 as a result of other countries coming on board. Okay. The World Bank obviously will do something for you. African Development Bank will obviously do something for you. These multilaterals, they kind of go together. Mm-hmm. So that is what the IMF is. We are hoping for the IMF to do for us. Of course, 3 billion will not solve our problems, mm-hmm. but it will give us the kind of credibility that we have made some effort. But where our efforts we are making are shortcoming, they are not actually meeting the prerequisite for a proper IMF program. But the IMF are trying to bend backwards to accommodate you. Then it will defeat the purpose. You may get the IMF, but it will not bring the needed support from elsewhere, because they will be looking at things differently. That you did not meet all the criteria, but they can allow the country to die. So let's give them the IMF and see whether we can work with them. So if we get an IMF at the end of March, then that will be charitable, because we have not done anything to demonstrate. I mean, you call this mess of domestic bond restructuring and the interim suspension of external bonds and the elephant in the room, China, as a successful debt restructuring, not in any textbook. So basically, we may get a deal, because the IMF will probably fed up with us. Now look, just give these guys 3 billion. You know, some countries get more than Argentina. If you Google, you will see. Argentina were given 50 billion by the IMF, or thereabout, at least 40 billion. They did not give them all the money at one go, but they agreed, like, as we get a 3 billion, it will not be at one go. And I think they even messed up. A government changed, and the new government said they will not be able to pay or whatever. So the program was halted. So if people could go to the IMF and get that much, but obviously it depends on the size of your economy and what they see as fixable. And they look at your GDP and your future, basically growth, before they can agree that. If you got a country getting like 3 billion and all that, it means there's nothing to write home about. They just want to keep you alive. It's like a life support machine. You know, the guy is going, let's put something on him and see whether he would.
Well, all right, well, we have to go. But I just want to ask you, if you were given the opportunity to change one thing about this government, what would it be?
Finance minister.
The finance minister?
Yes. The finance minister is a beleaguered finance minister. This man should have been gone. You know, I don't want to go into the details on what happened in Parliament. We had what it takes to nail this guy. But then, of course, our own side made certain mistakes. And this guy is still sitting in office.
You think you made mistakes?
Oh, we did. I can tell you for a fact.
We shouldn't have gone for the censure.
We should. But we didn't make our argument well.
Oh. The arguments were not properly done.
No. Were not properly made. I can tell you for a fact. I mean, our former leaders did, credibly well, taking us from electing a speaker to so many other successes that we chalk. But I can tell you from a fact, from what I know, from what I had prepared, from the research I had done, and from what I wanted to say on this matter, of the censure, which of course I did not get the opportunity to, not because I didn't want to, but by the design of the debate we were doing. I basically had to be taken out of that debate. And for that reason, some case that needed to be made was not made. Right from the, what is it called? Right from the what is it called? The interview itself with him. You know, the committee that was ad hoc committee with him, where he came and basically bluffed his way through with votes, contingency votes and all that, confusing people. And of course, we had very solid people there, but very little knowledge on the subject matter, and therefore could not titrate the type of things that we were supposed to be asking the finance minister. And he could not have gotten away with this, what is it called, contingency vote and things with some of us. He couldn't have done so with Atta Force, because, you know, I work with him, my colleague at the Ministry of Finance. We know these things. You know, we ate and drank these contingency fund on a daily basis. So we know what it is, what it entails and what it is. So if he or me were sitting there as the former deputy finance, but of course, he was the one who brought the matter. So he couldn't be part of the committee. So we have lawyers, we have people who have been, you know, scrutinizing things. Honorable Okujeto Blakwa, who has done a lot in exposing a lot of things in the government. We had another lawyer there. We have my sister, Honorable Zanoto, who is very, you know, knowledgeable and intelligent lady. But the subject matter
in
question needed.
You didn't put your best foot forward.
Absolutely.
Well,
I can tell you that. And then in the debate, on the floor, I was meant to speak. And that didn't happen. Not because I didn't want to, but I was asked not to. And names are submitted to the speaker, who will then call the names that have been given. So you just don't get up in this kind of debate and speak, like as we are doing this debate on the state of the nation. It's not like you get up and talk. Names will be submitted. It will be structured. It will probably be done in sector by sector. So maybe the finance committee will speak first on economic matters. Trade committee will come and speak on trade aspect of the president's thing, environment and all those things. So you don't just get up and say that I'm speaking. So when you are sitting there, people heard me on the radio stations and stuff talking about this Eurobonds and all that. And people were expecting that I would have gone in there and raised the issues. But I'm sorry I couldn't, because I was not given the opportunity to do so.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, leadership is tough. So maybe the leaders saw something different and made a different decision. So I'm not blaming them. But I'm telling you that we didn't do as best a job as we have done in other things. And if we are done, this finance minister will not be there. He still needs to go.
But you still have not gotten the vote of the majority, would you?
Well, you remember 80 people voted for him to go, and those 80, at least 80, those 80 rescinded their decision. Whatever they were fed with at the Jubilee House or Flagstaff House, I don't know. These guys went in sound, and they came out sounding something different from sound.
Honorable